Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon. My name is Charlie Gipple. I introduce myself here because we have a lot of folks that are strangers, so to speak, to our glorious weekly Friday Eve webinars, our Thursday webinars, which I always say is the most glorious day of the week here because we get to spend an hour together. You get to ask questions, you get to interact, you get to correspond. That's how we do these webinars. And I just love talking with the wonderful financial professionals out there. So, absolutely thrilled to have over 100 folks on the call today. Thank you for joining. Who all do we have on the phone here today? Let's see. Yeah, we have a lot of new names that I do not recognize here. We got Jenny. Jenny, how you doing? I don't think Jenny's ever joined one before. What is this? I have something pop up in the chat pane. By the way, tell me in the chat pane if you can see me and hear me okay. Tell me if you can see me and hear me okay, because I want to make sure the audio visual is coming in okay. And while you're doing that, I'm going to attach a little gift that I have for you, and it is a white paper on annuity taxation. Sounds like most of you can hear me loud and clear, it looks like. Annuity taxation. You should be able to see a little gift that I included in the chat pane there for you. It's I wouldn't even call it a 101, maybe a 202 on how our annuities taxed, right? Some of you may think that's common sense, but oftentimes when situations arise like, hey, I have a 45-year-old that whatever wants lifetime income. Are there any ways to do that without a pre-59 and a half penalty? Yeah, there are. Single premium immediate annuities can do that, assuming the source of funds, where it's coming from, was never deferred, right? So, okay, so it's immediate annuity taxation versus deferred annuity taxation. What about GLWB taxation? What about if the client dies with a qualified contract? What are the rules there? What if they die with a non-qualified contract? What are the rules there? The rules are largely you can either cash it out within 5 years, right? Or there are some companies that we're going to talk about that do non-qualified stretches here. So we're going to talk about a lot of different annuities today. We're going to talk about kind of which ones are my favorite, so to speak, for Roth conversions, non-qualified stretch, qualified stretch, or not necessarily qualified stretch. Those qualified monies that are now inherited that are subject to the 10-year rule. Well, you guys and gals tell me, is there any carrier out there that if you have a client over here that passed away after the year 2020, are there any carriers that will take that money as a decedent IRA to whereas the beneficiary has to cash it out within 10 years? Does this exist? Tell me your thoughts there. Because that's the way we roll on these webinars. It's not just me doing the work, folks. It's also you doing the work. So do those companies exist? Obviously, I probably wouldn't be bringing it up if those companies did not exist. I actually have my favorite here, but I'm surprised that none of you said, yeah, they exist, and it's this company or that company. But we're going to talk about that. Which ones are my favorite death benefit annuity companies? What about long-term care annuities? We've really beat the long-term care annuity horse over the last few weeks. I'm going to do that just a little bit on this call. We're not going to have a whole 30-minute pontification on long-term care annuities, even though they are almost the hottest thing in the annuity business today. I will tell you, it's the number one missed opportunity that I see when it comes to agents, advisors, financial professionals that do annuities. Many of them are not looking at long-term care annuities. It's a huge opportunity. Can't download the PDF. Can the rest of you download the PDF? I do have one individual saying he or she cannot download the PDF. Is it coming through okay on your side? Other folks, please let us know. We're going to talk about death benefit annuities, income now, income later, intermediate term. We're going to have some fun here. Cannot download the PDF. Well, then here's what I'm going to do. I am going to send you all a link once we get into the CG Academy here that we're going to do in a bit. I'm going to send you all a link. That's another way that you can access the exact same white paper that I'm talking about. All right, a few housekeeping items and we're going to get rolling. Number one is thank you all for the great year. We finished at about $130 million in annuity production, $130 million. That's 9 digits. That's almost double what it was last year. You guys continue to amaze me, and I continue to be very grateful for the partnership. When I opened this company uh, 8 years ago, well, let's just say I'm living my dream. There's always good possibilities that a company fails, but I knew almost immediately that we were not going to fail. And heck, at $130 million, and hopefully we double that again next year. So I'm living the dream, and hopefully I'm helping you guys and gals make good livings as well. I've been told that that's the case, but I'm going to continue to do my best here to provide the best, most accurate subject matter expertise and quickest service and information possible throughout the industry when it comes to annuities, life, and long-term care, because you and I both know that there is a lot. This is the reason I started this IMO, because there is a lot lacking in the IMO space. Yeah, just call us if you need an illustration. We'll probably guess at whatever questions you ask us. We'll probably guess at the answer. It may not be correct, but let us know if you need an illustration, and we might process your business effectively. Maybe not. But in the meantime, we, the IMO, will just get a little bit of our IMO override. And because we have what's called masses of asses, 20,000 advisors, we'll just make a ton of money. That's not my business model. My business model is I want less advisors, less financial professionals that that are looking for a one-stop shop, so to speak, with annuities, life, long-term care, and are halfway loyal to this marketing organization. And as a result, the business has taken off, and people are saying, "Yeah, it is a little different working with you." So thank you, number one. Number two, some news. Let's see, some news here, and I'm seeing if there's anything in the chat. Yeah, people aren't able to open the PDF that I gifted to you, but we'll get to that here in a bit. The bridge, so the Equitrust Bridge long-term care annuity, it got better. It got better in two different ways. Number one is the interest rate that grows the long-term care benefit. It increased. It increased from 2% to 3%. And number two is, this is a big one, flexible premiums within the first 5 years. Here's the way a long-term care annuity generally works. You put in 100 grand, it turns into maybe $300,000 right off the bat, right? 100,000 turns into $300,000 instantaneously for purposes of long-term care. And by the way, the account value, no, it's not going to triple, but it'll probably grow quite nicely. Well, before it was just basically that first premium that would have that tripling effect. The bridge now says that, hey, that triple or whatever the factor is, that on all of the premiums coming in within the first 5 years, flexible premium, it has that multiple. This is huge. It's awesome. They're the only ones in the industry that I know that has this treatment on their long-term care annuity of the four main players. So that's housekeeping number two. Housekeeping number three is, so here's some market numbers and then my point around this. The S&P 500 finished 2025 16.4% up. 16.4, the S&P 500. The Dow Jones, 13% up roughly. The NASDAQ, 21% up roughly. The AGG, the aggregate bond index, we talked about stocks. What about bonds? Finished up 7%. With that, I have been getting fortunately, not a lot from the agents that have written under my hierarchy, so to speak, but on social media, etc., a lot of people that are hugely disappointed with what I've been saying all along. These volatility control strategies. How is it possible, Charlie? The bond index has been up. The stock index has been up. Everything's been up except for basically cash here. How is it possible that with double-digit returns in the market, as well as almost double-digit in the bond market, that my client got a 0 on their statement or a 1% on their statement because of this fancy volatility control strategy? Yeah, I'm getting a lot of questions on that. And if you have a situation where you need clarity on that, it depends on which vol control strategy, but I've been preaching this for some time. You want the volatility in an index strategy because the ups are what you want to take advantage of. When a volatility control strategy says, hey, the index is always going to do this, but hey, it's uncapped. It's always going to do this because we have a volatility control, but hey, it's uncapped. Does that uncap really matter? No, it doesn't. And people are realizing year by year what I've been talking about for years here on that. So volatility control indexes, I just wanted to bring that up. I have a lot of thoughts depending on which index it was that you may come across. You have my number, so call me if you have that situation. I'm in Dallas next week. Look forward to talking with a couple of you next week that are actually on the call. I have shoulder surgery on Monday, and then I go to Dallas on Thursday. So we'll see how I'm feeling when I meet a couple of you producers on Thursday and or Friday. All right, so let's jump into this. And the first topic of conversation has to do with Roth IRA conversion annuities. And feel free to ask questions as we go here. And this kind of relates to actually kind of my fifth housekeeping item here. Then we're going to talk about the Roth conversion annuities that I like. So here you go to my website here. And for those of you that are appointed with CG Financial Group, you log into the CG Financial Group portal, the agent portal, right? And I'm going to show you something here that is huge, and it is a Roth IRA conversion in a box campaign. So many of you remember long-term care in a box that we just launched a couple months ago, to where social media posts where you just basically copy and paste into your Facebook account, for instance, Instagram, whatever, to your clients. These are pre-approved things, pre-created things, email templates, etc. for long-term care. We now have this for Roth IRA conversion. So here is the CG Financial Group portal. Over on the left-hand side, I'm going to show you how to get to this Roth campaign. Then we're going to talk about products around Roth conversions. By the way, you have the CG Academy here. Hundreds of writings, hundreds of white papers, hundreds of videos, et cetera, et cetera. Understanding the non-qualified stretch, annuity rate announcement for this week. So that is your academic type stuff, but Business Builder is where you usually go to actually get the EAPs, to actually write the policies, right? Now, for various technical reasons, this is where, over on the left-hand side, so this is your Business Builder. Those of you that have done business with CG Financial Group know what this is. Over on the left-hand side, you will now be able to find, when you click on marketing and then client sales campaigns, your Roth conversion campaign basically in a box here. We have client conversation content, sales tools. Check this out. I really like this one. The RMD impact. There's a part here that I'm going to do a lot of stuff with, actually. There's going to be a lot of marketing, a lot of client marketing here. What happens when you have a ton of qualified money? And this will lead into, again, Roth IRA conversion products, my favorite. Then we'll go into stretch products, non-qualified stretch, what companies allow what. So what happens when you have a large amount of required minimum distributions that are well required? Well, you have higher modified adjusted gross income. And what does that impact? And all these numbers are explained in the footnotes below, right? What impacts the senior bonus? What the heck is that senior bonus? One big beautiful bill act, right? Two people over 65 filing jointly, it's $12,000. If you make too much modified adjusted gross income, that stuff can go away. So can the SALT deduction. So can, well, let's see, you have higher Medicare premiums, right? IRMA. And by the way, we have articles on IRMA. You have net investment income tax. If you make over $250,000, you now have to pay additional tax, all because of these higher, in some cases, all because of these higher required minimum distributions. So a lot of cool content like this. You also have, going to close out of this, you also have, what else? Well, a lot of stuff. You have probing questions to ask your clients around the Roth IRA conversion. So with that, who are my favorite Roth IRA conversion companies? And this is not an all-inclusive list. This is just usually when you call me up and ask me the question. I'm going to unshare right now for just a second. Who should I look at with this Roth IRA conversion client? Charlie, I ran with the campaign and people are interested. I have a few companies here. American Equity is one. Athene is another one. Equitrust is another one. Allianz is another one. Now, why do I like them? Almost any company in the industry will do Roth IRA conversions. However, have you ever had a client come to you and say, I have $1 million IRA money, I want to convert it all in this year? No. Why Why does a client not want to convert it all in one? Well, folks, you tell me. Just make sure you're paying attention. This is an obvious question. Why does one not want to convert all of their money to a Roth IRA in that 1 year if they're sitting on $1 million in IRA money, traditional IRA money? Why would they not want to do that? My delicious breakfast here that tastes like shit, to be honest with you, but that's another topic. Higher taxes, 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 IRMA. But IRMA, that's a good one, right? Yeah, remember, we just talked a little bit about IRMA. That bumps up how much money you made in that year. And as a result, 2 years later, all of a sudden, Medicare, you have a huge Medicare additional premium that you're paying on your Part B. So there are a lot of different reasons you wouldn't do that. Therefore, partial Roth conversions. Some people call them piecemeal Roth conversions. The content here talks about in-flight Roth conversions, which I kind of like. Hey, you're still going without opening up a new separate contract. Wouldn't it be nice if these carriers just allowed you to partially convert to a Roth IRA without doing much? And that is what these carriers that I mentioned do. American Equity, Athene, Equitrust, and Allianz is they will allow you to do piecemeal conversions. So that person with $1 million says, hey, I want to convert $50,000 over the next whatever, 20 years. So what happens? It's merely a form that they send to American Equity saying, hey, I want to convert this chunk, this $50,000 into a Roth IRA. They open up a mirror contract, and that mirror contract is a Roth IRA contract. So now you have $50,000 Roth IRA, $950,000 traditional IRA. The 1099 goes out that year for the $50,000 conversion. And boom, that's as simple as it is with these companies as well as others. But these are usually the ones that I found that know their stuff. Equitrust with qualified money is more capable, I believe, than any of these companies. And we'll talk a little bit here in a bit about how they handle decedent IRA money with a guaranteed lifetime withdrawal benefit. So qualified money inherited a GLWB. Equitrust does things that these carriers don't. A lot of these carriers don't do. Here's my situation that went pretty much viral on LinkedIn, and I had some hate as well from the people that don't believe in annuities, and it's this. And I'll tell you about a Roth conversion idea or concept here. Last year, I was 47 years old, right? 46. So this has been a year and a half ago. So I was 46 at the time. I put $200,000 into the best income later product, which we'll talk about. Income later product. I ran my annuity rate watch like I do for all of you fine folks and say, I have a 46-year-old dude that wants to start income at age 65 and also has a spouse that is age 47 at the time. What will pay us the most income at age 65? Folks, who is that carrier that you've heard me tell this story about over and over and over again? Who is the carrier I went with? Because they showed up at the top of the chart. And this was IRA money, by the way. Yep, that's right. American Equity. Greg, you've heard this story before. American Equity. I dumped $200,000 into an American Equity product. That $200,000, 19 years from then, is going to pay us $44,000 per year into perpetuity. Guaranteed lifetime income forever. I am going to piecemeal convert that $200,000 between now and 20 years from now to where that 44 grand into perpetuity is going to be tax free. So when we do that with American Equity, say we convert a chunk 5 years from now, what happens to, so let's say that the account value is still $200,000, but the benefit base that the income is based off of, the benefit base has grown to say $300,000 just to make it simple. When I convert, let's say $100,000. When I convert $100,000 over to this mirror contract that is now a Roth IRA, how do some carriers actually treat $100,000 as a contract value he converted, but that benefit base attributable to that $100,000 has grown to $150,000. What happens with some of these companies, Corebridge, for instance, who I love, but not when it comes to this, when you move over that $100,000? Does that benefit base of $150,000 get reflected in that Roth IRA? Not with Corebridge, not with a few other companies. Nope, sorry, the 100,000 goes over here. Therefore, you're kind of starting at zero from a benefit base standpoint. So when it comes to Roth IRA piecemeal conversions, when we have a GLWB, a guaranteed lifetime withdrawal benefit, you have to ask that question. Does the benefit base proportionately also roll over to that Roth IRA, or do you effectively lose it? I love Corebridge, but I was surprised when I heard them say that that does not happen. That is the case with American Equity. It is the case with Athene. It is the case with Allianz, and it is the case with Equitrust. So a lot of this stuff that I experience every day, there's a lot. I recommend things to where there's a lot beneath the surface than just, oh, American Equity, they're a good company. Because I've stepped in a lot of crap over my life, right? And that was one pile of crap that I could have very easily stepped in if American Equity otherwise, you know, wasn't as friendly as they are when it comes to conversions. All right, so let's talk a little bit about non-qualified stretches here. Does anybody have any, what is typically, traditionally, the only option? I shouldn't say the only option. There are actually two options traditionally that a person has when you have a bunch of annuity money that is accumulated in an annuity that's non-qualified, a bunch of gain, and that person passes away. Non-qualified money again. What has traditionally been the options prior to, I want to say like 2008, 2009? A, you have to cash it out within a 5-year period of time. Or B, that beneficiary can actually annuitize over their lifetime. And that's in our white paper. If you go back to, again, the CG Academy here, right? So go into CG, check this out. So I cannot emphasize enough how if you guys want to be good at this stuff, you go into the CG Academy and check it out. By the way, you can search. Let's do I'm not going to do that. That's too. But down here, understanding the non-qualified stretch, right? So it explains this, that actually what you can do is if the carrier accepts it, and this is actually a Corebridge piece, if the carrier accepts it, what you can do is you can 1035 that death benefit after the person has passed away over to one of these companies that will stretch out that big gain in the contract over that person's life. Who are my two favorite companies for this, for the non-qualified stretch? With MIGAs, multi-year guaranteed annuities, it is actually GBU. GBU, which is like the fifth largest fraternal company, maybe the sixth largest fraternal company in the country, is the easiest company that I've ever done business with. They have a somewhat new indexed annuity that's like 4 years in duration. And they have some of the top MIGA rates in the industry, whether it's 2-year, whether it's 5-year, and they're so easy to do business with. They will take the non-qualified stretch. Corebridge will also take the non-qualified stretch. So if you have somebody that passes away with big gain in their annuity, which there's a lot of that with what the market has done lately, right? Call me up and I can get you illustrations on those non-qualified stretches here. Now, what about qualified stretches? Or I shouldn't say stretches. Somebody passed away, the beneficiary has to cash it out within 10 years. So post the Secure Act, the rule is generally, unless they're less than 10 years younger than the person, et cetera, they have to cash it out within a 10-year period of time. And I'm going to show you something really interesting. This is a real life scenario. My client, well, I'm not going to show you actually my client, but the scenario basically replicates what I just did with a client here. Equitrust takes decedent IRA money. Ocean View takes decedent IRA money. And American Equity takes decedent IRA money. Now, there are ramifications. For instance, if the rule that the IRS has is that all the money has to be turned into non-qualified money within 10 years, let's say that one of these companies had a 20-year product, is that company going to let you use that product for that decedent IRA? The answer is no, generally not. So the company will say, well, you have to have, there are certain requirements in the products that we offer that you can use and only use those when it comes to decedent IRAs. But check this out. This is probably the most interesting thing that I have learned over, oh, the last couple year period of time. So a couple of years ago, I learned about this from, go into my files here. All right, let's go over to Equitrust. Equitrust. Okay, this is about Equitrust. So like I said, Equitrust does a lot of things that a lot of carriers don't do. So for instance, Equitrust says with a Roth IRA conversion, we will do the piecemeal thing to where we create a mirror contract. Equitrust will also say this. Let me ask you guys and gals a question before I tell you what Equitrust says. Do carriers allow for you to move that decedent IRA money over that is subject to the 10-year rule to attach for that beneficiary a guaranteed lifetime withdrawal benefit rider? Do carriers generally allow for you to do that? So somebody dies with $200,000 IRA. The beneficiary is sitting there with it. Can that beneficiary move it over? We know that they can move it over to, say, Ocean View, right? Because I just said that Ocean View does decedent IRAs. But can they attach generally a guaranteed lifetime withdrawal benefit rider to that policy? What are your answers here? That's right. The answers are generally no. So here is what I recently did here. Equitrust allows for it. Equitrust allows for it. So I had this lady who's 60 years old. Her mother died. So she's 60 years old. Her mother was like 80 years of age. And I kind of replicated this with the illustration that I'm showing you here. Can everybody see the illustration? Okay. Tell me in the chat pane if you can see the illustration. Okay. But I basically replicated the same scenario for this guy. So 60 years old. Yeah, you can see it, it looks like. So 60 years old, $100,000. So death happened over there. He wants to bring it over to Equitrust into it, or in this case, it's a he, but it was technically her, my great client out of Atlantic, Iowa. She says, but income is the goal, Charlie. I mean, I need guaranteed income. I know you have products that, like at my age, 67 or 68, 100 grand, give me a lot of money in income versus me rolling the dice in the stock market. I like that income. I don't have a ton of money other than this inheritance here. So what can we do here? So here is what Equitrust says. Equitrust says that $100,000 can go into, it doesn't matter which GLWB they have the market future income product, which basically says anything beyond 5 years or so, this is the best product for you because of the way that the roll-up rates work. And then you have the market early index, which is for like less than 5 years, for instance. But that doesn't matter in this case. But what I did is I said, well, we have this market future product. I didn't tell her that. Nobody cares about the product. But here's what can happen is we could put that $100,000 in. And let me ask you guys a question. If her mom, who was 80 years of age, passed away between years 1 and 10, does the beneficiary, my beneficiary here, do they have to take required minimum distributions? Between years 1 and 10, or can they just cash it all out by the end of the 10th year? Is that what the rule is? So think tax law here, right? The mother who passed away at age 80, was she taking required minimum distributions? Yeah. So then does that mean that our beneficiary has to take required minimum distributions between year 1 and 10? What does that mean? Yes or no? The answer is yes. The answer is yes. With decedent IRAs, what determines if a person has to take RMDs between year 1 and 10, forget just cashing it all out. We know that they have to cash it out by the end of year 10, but what determines if the beneficiary has to take RMDs out is if the person that passed away was beyond their required beginning date. In this case, that was the case. So here is what Equitrust will do. They will say, you can indeed, we can offer that client a GLWB product. And what happens here is, yes, we will process those required minimum distributions, which is now based off of our beneficiaries' life expectancy as the years go by, right? So we will distribute those RMDs. And by the way, in the eighth year here, when you want to turn on income, that income is $9,788. But here's what I told the client. I told the client, okay, but and then you might be confused if you understand the tax law, but I'm going to explain this to you here. But if we're taking money out of this GLWB product, we're kind of watering down the ultimate benefit here, right? We're kind of, I mean, 9,700, yeah, that's good on $100,000 starting 8 years from now. But what if we did have to take, say, $3,500 per year out and require distributions from the contract? Equitrust tells us that we don't have to do that. So a couple of things here. Here is what Equitrust tells us that you can do is as time goes by with those required minimum distributions, if you were to do what is called a tax, well, what's a technical term that they call it? A tax. Basically, I'll just call it a conversion. I think they call it tax conversion or something. To where $3,600 from the policy, they will basically not cut the check. You can elect to just have the client can elect to be 1099 each year for this 3,600, 3,600, 3,598, whatever. And what happens is Equitrust just sends the 1099 out and they keep all of the money in the policy. So they keep all the money in the policy, but the client has paid for that RMD year by year by year from their pocket, right? From their pocket. So what happens when we're not taking money out of the policy? So I will run another illustration. It's not roughly $10,000 per year. What is it that she will have in income ultimately? What she's going to have in income ultimately, because there's no money coming out of her pocket, is $13,196 per year. Okay, so what happens at the end of that 10th year? What happens at the end of that 10th year? What happens is because all the money is to be liquidated out of the policy per the IRS by the end of the 10th year, it's the same notion as what Equitrust does with the Roth IRA conversion, which is why I started the conversation with this. They will, year by year, reclassify 3,000 some odd dollars as non-qualified money. They'll do a tax conversion, set up a mirror contract to where the end result is what you're seeing here on the screen. And by the way, whatever is left in contract value by the end of the 10th year, they will send the client that 1099, but have that in a mirror contract the to where 100% of the policy is now non-qualified money. And guess what? She's getting $13,100 in income from that guaranteed lifetime withdrawal benefit. That's a pretty darn cool option there. She's able to keep all of her money intact. And A, she's able to get a GLWB. B, she's able to keep all of her money intact because they do that mirror contract thing. And C, well, the end result is she's able to get a heck of a lot more income. That's a little heavy on the tax stuff, but that is why I love Equitrust, not just for accumulation Roth conversions, because there are two types of sales, right? Does your client want accumulation annuities or does your client want income? Equitrust is good not just on the accumulation side, but also they're the only company that I know that has a GLWB option for that stretch IRA. Any questions on that before we move on? That one is a little deeper into the tax stuff. Okay, let's talk about premium bonus annuities. Um, Replacements today versus 10 years ago. Are replacements really frowned upon today relative to 10 years ago, say? Or are replacements kind of more acceptable than they were 10 years ago? Are they more acceptable or less acceptable than what they were 10 years ago? Tell me what your thoughts are. I sincerely want to know what your thoughts are because you are in the field. You know what's going on here. So more acceptable. Why is that? Why is that? Well, because here's an example. because the products were crappy 10 years ago versus today, 5 years ago versus today. I'm going to show you an example of a client that I sold the best product in the industry, at least when it comes to income, 5 years ago. Today, I'm talking with him. Hey, I'm not in the business of replacing, of switching, of churning policies, David, my client. I'm not in that business. I don't have the reputation I have by churning policies. But I'll tell you, today you may want to consider that, David, because the interest rate environment 5 years ago is you have the best product that was available at the time. The interest rate dynamics have changed, and here is something I want you to at least look at today. And that's a conversation that we'll come back to in about 5 minutes here on the GLWB side. But the point is a lot of folks are replacing kind of some crappy annuities from especially 10 years ago. We remember caps on indexed annuities of 4%, 5%. Our best accumulation products today, accumulation annuities, American Equity, 9.25 cap, right? Corebridge, 9.5% cap. Equitrust, a 10% cap. Ocean View is up there as well. I'm covering a lot of stuff here. Great accumulation annuities. We're now talking double what it was 5 to 10 years ago. So, yeah, replacements are being done a lot. They're more acceptable than what they were maybe 10 years ago. What's the problem, though, with a lot of these carriers? Or I would say, what benefit on the new annuity has to be there in order for the new carrier to accept the business if the client has, say, a 5% surrender charge? What attribute must the new product have if that carrier is going to approve it? If the client has, say, on the old policy, a 5% surrender charge because they're only 5 years into a 10-year policy. What am I looking at here? A premium bonus. Greg, that's right, a premium bonus. Okay, so who are the best premium bonus companies out there, so to speak? Well, at the same time, you and I both know that if you take a product that does not have a premium bonus, yeah, we're talking 9% caps, 10% caps. A product that does have a 10% premium bonus, what are those caps? They're a lot more, they're watered down versus what you have over here. The company doesn't give that to the client out of the kindness of their heart, right? So I want to show you a tool which will lead us to a couple of my favorite companies that shows us, okay, who has the best premium bonus product here. And I'll tell you, all right, so let's make sure I'm sharing. I am sharing, cool. I've done that before. I've gone on, and you guys come back 15 minutes later saying, are you sharing a screen? Why, yes, I am. It was supposed to be. All right, so Business Builder here. Your trusty business builder tool that you access via the CG Financial Group website, voted the most glorious website that ever existed, which is a complete lie, but I thought it sounded good. All right, so you go over here to sales tools, right? Sales tools, e-app. Do you actually want to write the policy? No, we're not there yet, but if you do, that's where Firelight is. Okay, let's go into annuity and annuity specs. So you're the geeky type. And you say, you know what? I want to use kind of the same tools that Charlie uses when I call him up and he analyzes stuff and tells me which one is the best. And by the way, I don't tell people which one is the best just based off of a stupid tool. There's also the experience part of this. This company has a great rate, but they're going to screw you over the long run with renewal rates, right? Most of that comes with experience and wisdom, so to speak. But this at least helps steer us in the right direction here as I start my research. So many of you know Cheryl Moore. She has annuity specs. This is her system. And what we're able to do is slice and dice however you want. Who has the best policy that goes up to age 95, for instance? What about a contract that has a bonus rate of, say, 10% plus? So 10%, 11%, 12%. Let's stick with 10% because I want to demonstrate something to you here. So I put in here 10%. And you're going to have all of these side by sides because you and I both know that a 10% bonus product isn't crap if it has a cap on the S&P 500 of, say, like 2%. Well, why would you do that? Yeah, I'm sure the company would approve it because that 10% offsets the surrender charges, right? That's what the companies require, to my previous point, a premium bonus so that the net loss to the client is, well, in many cases, it's not more than, say, 4%, 3%, 5%. So that's why the carriers mandate that. Okay, so we have all the companies here, all the products that have 10% premium bonuses. How is it that I might slice and dice this? I will go over to either the fixed rate or the cap rate. Why is that? Because it's not this weird, convoluted volatility. And I like some volatility control strategies, but that is a way of hiding what the true pricing is in the product. A 300% participation rate on a volatility control strategy doesn't tell me how much of a call option budget the carrier is utilizing. Looking at the fixed rate does, generally. Looking at the cap rate on the plain vanilla S&P 500 does generally. Okay, so the company is giving us a 10% premium bonus. Do they have any juice whatsoever in the cap over here on the product, or is it just the shell game that they're playing? So if you go here, and I'm going to see if I can zoom in without completely throwing. All right, so here are the top companies. The top one is 18.5%, and many of you are probably, wow, 18.5. Well, that's a 2-year strategy. National Life, we're going to do a webinar on soon, which is also Life of the Southwest. They are killing it in the income game and also the accumulation game. But they're not killing it because of this strategy, because this is a biennial strategy. That is over a 2-year period of time. So don't get too excited about 18.5% cap. 14.5%, it's the same thing. It's biennial. What do we have here? We have an 8.75% cap. Who is this? This is National Life, right? So not only do we have a 10% premium bonus, we have an A plus company that also has an 8.75% cap. Here we have an 8% cap. I'll tell you that's Gillico without scrolling over, but that is a volatility control strategy, completely apples to oranges. That's the convoluted stuff. Here we have 7.75% cap. Who is this? This is one of my favorite companies, although not A rated. I love NASA. I love NASA Re. When it comes to providing a 10% premium bonus, whether it's to offset surrender charges or otherwise, they have one of the highest caps out there. And by the way, they have among the highest commission out there as well. And then you have 7.75% cap. The list goes on there. That's Americo. You have, so yeah, so in short, who I like for my premium bonus products is I like Global Atlantic as well. I like Life of the Southwest, also known as National Life, and I like NASA. We do a ton of business with NASA. NASA kills it on the commission side and a product development side as well. On the income side, they often kill their competitors, right? So when you have a replacement to do, those premium bonus products are something to keep in mind. Just because, and by the way, in Athene, if I were to check like a 12% or 11% premium bonus, Athene would be up there as well. But we just to keep it simple, we went with the 10% premium bonus. So I do love Athene from a premium bonus standpoint as well. Any questions on that? Any questions on premium bonus products? Switching over to water here. What about death benefit annuities? Charlie, maybe it's an IRA. Charlie, they want to pass on a large amount to the beneficiaries. They're uninsurable. Is there an annuity that doesn't require underwriting that will pass on a pretty decent sized death benefit? Nassau Re and Global Atlantic. Global Atlantic has a rider that you can attach. I think if I remember right, it's a 1% fee or so. It's somewhere around there where you can attach a rider to the policy and up to certain ages. Global Atlantic is a 10% simple interest rider. So yeah, 100,000 today in 10 years, it's guaranteed to be $200,000. Nassau Re is 14% simple. Now, Nassau Re is a little more strict, as in it only goes this long for this many years versus Global Atlantic. But my point is, on a case by case basis, I compare the two of those together, and hey, this is the money carrier right here for this scenario here. It's Global Atlantic or usually Nassau Re. Global Atlantic is unique in this. If required minimum, I just said qualified money, right? Well, okay, so Charlie, then tell me when the client hits age 73 or 75, whenever their required beginning date is, how does that big benefit, death benefit base, how is it impacted by the required minimum distributions? How is that? Um, with Global Atlantic, it is not pro rata reductions. Well, your contract value is 100,000, your benefit base is 200,000, and if you take out $10,000 of your contract value, we're reducing this by 20 grand. That's what pro rata means, and that is the usual treatment. And that's the same treatment that our GLWBs have if you take money out above the amount that can be taken out. However, with Global Atlantic, it is dollar for dollar for purposes of RMDs, right? Dollar for dollar. So the contract value is $100,000. The benefit base is $200,000. You have to take out an RMD of, let's say, $5,000. How much does that reduce your $200,000 down to? $195,000. So literally, you will see a point on the illustration to where like the contract value is like almost zero. But the death benefit base is still very huge. Why is that? Because of what I'm talking about here, that dollar for dollar treatment there. So that's death benefit annuities. Let me know if you have any questions. Best income in Texas, 66 years old. Let's talk a little bit about income. I'm going to switch back to this page. Let's talk a little bit about income. 66 years old. It depends on how long that person wants to defer for, right? What income focused annuities have is really kind of three different components. And the way that these three different components are is what determines, hey, this is a great income now product, as in immediately. Hey, this is a great income intermediate product, as in like 5 years from now. Hey, this is a great income later product. Like my American Equity product, what Income Shield is what it's called. What made it a great income later product is because that 6.5% compounded roll up, it went on for 20 years to where a lot of these companies have roll up rates that drop significantly after, say, 10 years. So, me at 46 going to 65, I'm getting that 6.5% compounded, not simple. Some of them are simple, compounded roll up for 19 years. And the payout factor is also good. And thus, on only 200 grand going in, I'm going to have $44,000 coming out for both me and my wife's life, right? So there are three primary components. Number one is what is that roll up rate and how long does it go? So the larger the roll up rate and the longer that it goes, that largely affects the income later scenario, right? The second thing is what are the payout factors? Say I can have a zero roll up rate, and if I want income only 1 year from now, as long as that payout factor is absolutely huge, that is a great income soon product, income now product. And then the third component, what makes a great income now product? The benefit base bonus. So say for instance, Nationwide today has a 25% benefit base bonus. So immediately the amount that your income is based off of is 25% higher than what you put in. And assuming you have a halfway decent payout factor, that's multiplied times that rate, you're going to have a great income now product. And that is the case with Nationwide. So it's those three primary things. Do you have to worry about all that math? Do even I have to worry about all that math? The answer is heck no. Why? Because the reports tell us the end result. We don't care about any of that stuff. We just care about the end result because you see a lot of fluffery, right? 20% roll-ups. All right. So the benefit base is going to increase by 20% per year, but if the end payout factor that it's multiplied by is 1%, that's just a marketing scheme that the company's putting out, right? So so Chris, kind of to venture into your question here, let's talk about income soon. Let's talk about income soon, as in 1 year from now. So these are my clients that I just talked about. They have $190,000 in a Gillico policy that we issued 4 years ago, technically, right in the depth of COVID, right, or slightly after COVID. Interest rates were low. They were concerned. They saw the market do a lot of crappy stuff during COVID. They came to me and they said, "Hey, we have at the time it was 180,000. How much income will this give us in like 5 years? Guaranteed, Charlie. How much will it give us?" I said, "Okay, I'm going to run my report here," which was this program here. At the time I ran it, Gillico was by far and away at the top. Okay, your $180,000 going in is going to generate $12,000 a year in income for both of you 5 years from now. So that's actually pretty darn good. And it's kind of crappy when you think about the rates now. I mean, the rates that we're dealing with now, as I will display here in a bit. So we're talking last week, and he said, "Hey, as we retire a year from now, right? 5 years from then, a year from now, is there something else that I should be considering with my $190,000 Gillico policy?" I said, "Well, first of all, if you cash it out, it's not 190,000 because there are surrender charges. It's actually $180,000. But let me do what I would do, and this is how I work, whether it's my clients or you. Here is exactly what I would do in my situation, David. Wonderful, wonderful guy. Let me run the numbers, $180,000, and let me see if you're retiring a year from now and certain that you're going to activate the income." So many clients, they buy these riders and they get to that point and they're too conservative. They're ultra conservative. "Oh, I don't want to dip into it. I don't want to activate." Dude, you have to activate it, because once you activate that, that is when you start getting into the carrier's pockets, right? Your wealth in an income focused annuity is not going to come from this value here, the accumulation value growing. The wealth from income products are received via the income payments. And if you're not using the income payments, why are you paying rider charges? Why are you having watered down caps? So you have to promise me, David, in 1 year, you're going to access this annuity. And then I'll give you the analytics. So I ran the report, and sure enough, nationwide, which offers a 25% bonus right off the bat, and then an 8% roll up for the next year's period of time. Is that higher than $12,000? Heck yeah, it's higher than $12,000. So what would I do if I were him? I would maybe take that $10,000 surrender charge and I would do the nationwide policy here. So I further had the conversation, and I have this conversation a lot. By the way, I'm fully loaded with my trusty whiteboard, as you noticed here. Here's what I draw for clients a lot, a little bit of a sales idea or a sales talk here. If I can find my marker, where's my marker? Here it is. So here is how I might talk to somebody like David. I'd already done this 4 years ago, but here is the concept to David. So David, you have $180,000. You could stick with your current contract. You could cross your fingers and hope that it does well in the market. You can move it to the market or whatever. Again, I didn't have this conversation with David because he doesn't want the market. But let's say that somebody's like, "Oh, I want to move my 180 grand into the stock market here." Okay, well, let's say that between now and next year, your $180,000, it kills it in the stock market. It goes up, say, 10%, right? So up 10%, that means that you have roughly $200,000 at that point in time because you're in the stock market. How much, folks, I'm asking you, how much should he take out of his portfolio in that first year? No more than this percentage. What is the rule of thumb? $200,000 times what percentage should be the maximum, if we're following the rules of thumb, that he should take out starting in 1 year. So we have stocks and bonds here, $200,000. What percentage is the rule of thumb that he should take out no more than? Some folks are saying 3, some 3.5, some 4. Let's just give it the benefit of the doubt. Let's say 4, so 0.04%. Then that means that 1 year from now, if you follow the traditional stuff, stocks and bonds are the best, and then the 4% rule, that's, these investment advisors, which I am one, these anti-annuity rocket scientists on LinkedIn that, when I posted about my $200,000, "Did you consider that the stock market?" No, I didn't consider that the stock market's done 10% since the beginning of time. No, I never considered that as I did. I never considered that as a CFP, a CLU, a CHFC, somebody that's been doing this for 25 years. I never considered the opportunity cost, right? So these guys, okay, so let's follow your Edward Jones guy's advice. The market, it goes up decent, 10%. Well, in that case, then you should take out no more than $8,000 in that year. Well, conversely, what if we say forget that $8,000, forget rolling the dice? What if I told you that immediately your $180,000 for purposes of income, it's going to go to $225,000? Why is that? Because of the 25% benefit-based bonus there. And then between now and next year, that is going to grow to guaranteed from an income standpoint, $243,000. $243,000. And then at that point in time, guess what? The insurance company says, hey, not only is that guaranteed, but also the payout factor, not of 4%, but of 5.95%, 5.95% is guaranteed. So you multiply that times that, and guess what you're guaranteed, David? Not $8,000, but $14,459 is what the nationwide policy will guarantee you. Well, what if I think the stock market's going to go up higher than 10%? Okay, so then using the 4% rule of thumb, get out your calculator, folks. And I do this with clients. Using the 4% rule of thumb, what is it that your stock market investment would have to grow to in order to get 14,459 in that year? 14,459 divided by 0.04. How much, if you didn't listen to me here, would you have to grow your stock and bond portfolio in order to generate that 14,459? I'll tell you, I've already done the math. 14,459 divided by 0.04. It's like double. It's over $360,000. So you're bullish in the stock market, but do you think it's going to double? No, I don't think it's going to double. And again, that's not a conversation I had with David. The conversation I had with David is quite simply, hey, versus the annuity that you bought, even after the surrender charge, your $180,000, it will generate more income to you. So in short, for the income now scenarios, income early scenarios, and it kind of depends on age as well. Nationwide, Athene is usually very good with income early. Corebridge, and you all get your individual report when you give me the client's information and all that. I run this every time I have a conversation with you. So it's not like you walk away and say, Charlie says Corebridge is the one to use for everybody. No, it varies. What about the age? A 70-year-old wanting income immediately, Global Atlantic, their SE 150 is the best. Why? Because of huge payout factors as well as a 20% benefit-based bonus. So all this, you can kind of see the levers and pulleys here. Here I ran one, and these are real-life scenarios. So I ran one. This one was for a 68-year-old client. Don't remember who this client was, but they had $434,000. Again, 5 years from now, nationwide, was the top. But American Equity, so we're getting into that income later, which American Equity is very good at here. NASA, again, I love NASA. American Equity is popping up within the top three there for income 5 years from now. So I think, Chris, we're kind of getting close to your scenario here, who would pop up at top based off your situation, but not exactly yours. You get exactly yours from me, right? Income later. An agent called me up a while back, maybe on the call here. I don't know, but my guy from Massachusetts said, hey, my own personal money, Charlie, $100,000 going in today. I'm 59. I want to delay for 10 years. So income later, right? Want to delay for 10 years. Who's the top? Well, in this scenario, it's the market future, right? Like I just explained, not now, not midterm, but say 10 years from now. American Equity, they're creeping towards the top because of their income later, and North American kills it as well. They and American Equity process the business better than any company in the entire industry. Lastly, here for the next minute, by the way, don't hang up, folks. Make sure you fill out the evaluation here. Tell us how we did. Give me some additional comments if you have any. The long-term care annuity companies, get an illustration on them. I mean, we're talking the Equitrust Bridge, like 9% compensation, but the $100,000 going in turns into $300,000, for instance. What's wrong with that? No, it's beautiful, and it's gotten even better. 4 long-term care companies. Boom. Nationwide is now in the game. The household name Nationwide and its indemnification. Equitrust, that's an index platform, and its indemnification. If you don't know what the hell that means, I will teach you what indemnification versus reimbursement means. Oh, yeah, One America, the king of the hybrid market. One America has everything. You have qualified money. One America can work with that qualified money. How does that work with long term care? I'll explain it to you. Global Atlantic, not only do you have the tripling thing of the long term care benefit, you have a 5.5% or 6% interest rate on just the annuity value, should the client ever just want to cash it out. So, folks, hope you got some stuff out of this. Make sure you fill out the evaluation here that's going to pop up in about 10 seconds. Really appreciate your time and thank you for the wonderful year. If you're not appointed yet, why the heck not? All right, I'll see you guys later.